All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are all well. My name is Devin Littlefield, and I'm going to be giving you 5 lead generating strategies for you B2B mavericks out there, particularly on LinkedIn advertising. Just so everybody is aware, if you are looking for the SEO talk that is in the next room, I'm here to give you all of the tips around how you can be boosting your business with LinkedIn ads. And the way that I want to go ahead and get started is with a little bit of a story. Now, we as an agency have been in the business for a long time. We see a lot of clients coming and going. We had a client that came to us initially and said, hey, Devin, I have an $8,000 a month budget. We are running everything on Google Ads currently. What can you do to help us? So we spent, as usual, the next 30 days or so focusing in on our onboarding process, trying to get them up and running. Things were pretty smooth and normal. They were strictly running on Google Ads. About 45 days later, in one of our ongoing meetings, they approached us and they said, hey Devin, what if? Whenever I hear a statement come like that from a client, I get very, very nervous. I start to sweat a little. I'm like, oh boy, this is either gonna be really good news for us or really, really bad news for us. Turns out it was good news. They said, Devin, we've been talking to our investors. We've gotten some additional funds. What would you do if we gave you $80,000 a month to spend on any advertising? What would you do? That was my first reaction. I was like, holy smokes, what? Whew, this is a lot of good stuff. This was my next reaction that I had, but for a different reason, of course. But what it led us to ultimately driving into is then identifying that LinkedIn ads could be a really strong part of their overall media mix. And over the course of the next several months, we then launched and iterated on, I think, nearly 30 to 40 different campaigns spreading across Google, LinkedIn, and other advertising platforms. And certainly we learned a few things in the process along the way. This client was a B2B software company in particular, and you can imagine as they got funding, there was opportunity to really focus and diversify on our strategies with this particular client. But it led us to LinkedIn, and now LinkedIn, for them, who we are still working with, is one of the single biggest ad platforms that they are currently leveraging within their total media mix, which, by the way, their budget has only gone up since then as well, as we've been seeing results. Now, as you can imagine, we need to stop and think to ourselves, why LinkedIn? Why would we put this much emphasis into LinkedIn, and particularly LinkedIn ads, especially as part of their overall marketing mix? This is the single biggest reason why. When we look at B2B advertisers that are using LinkedIn to be able to generate their leads, we see that they typically will get 3% conversion rates compared to Twitter and Facebook, which are typically around the 1% mark. Very, very good when it's a well-run strategy. The other thing that we know is that 75% of buyers say that thought leadership helped them determine a vendor to work with. Clearly, LinkedIn carries influence, and I'm sure I would be shocked if there are people in this room that do not have LinkedIn at this point, though if you don't, please go sign up and get your LinkedIn profile going today. But it clearly carries a lot of value for the right business, and we see that value carry out over time. In the case of that advertiser that I was mentioning earlier, we are now hands down generating them thousands of leads a month that are well qualified, fit their ICP, and there's a really, really strong alignment in their overall marketing mix. So what we've learned from this engagement and from others since then as well is that there's a really strong mix of great opportunities inside of LinkedIn ads, and we've also learned that there are a lot of things that don't work particularly well. I'm going to get in and share with you all the 5 tips for why and what are the things that we've learned in this process that you may find beneficial. Before I do, I'm going to stop and just make a very quick note. At the very end of this presentation, there's a QR code. Scan it. It will have the link to this presentation. I'm also going to then upload this video that's being recorded to later as well, so you have all of the notes you need. So let's go ahead and dive in. What are the 5 strategies that we see work exceptionally well with generating leads on LinkedIn? The first is leveraging precision targeting. What do I mean by precision targeting? I'm talking about being able to break out different functions and be able to identify and ideate on how can I take this message and bring it to the right person. LinkedIn is exceptionally good at not providing help directly, so it's a very good, if you don't do it right, you could be wasting a lot of money on ads, to be frank. But if you were to break it out in such a way where you have things like job functions and things like visitors, you can track visitors that have come to your website, try to re-engage them on LinkedIn ads, and you can also then target the right seniorities. What I also love about LinkedIn is that you have the ability to exclude things as well. So in the case of this particular campaign, we've excluded current clients, former clients, and partners or vendors. We certainly don't want to waste ad dollars on people that are not going to buy from us or have already bought something from us. That's an example of how you could potentially then layer or filter this. But where it starts is your layered targeting. Yep, that's your duplicate slide, there you go, different way to look at it. Where it starts is with first making sure that you know who your ideal customer is, or your ideal customer profile, and your buyer persona. We want to make sure that this is well-defined, understood, and that people know, anybody looking at some form of documentation, that you should write down that we know who we are targeting. Second, we then want to make sure that we align this overall target to the campaigns that we're going to be running. And I'll get into the whole mix and give some suggestions around that in a few minutes, but let's just start by leaving it there and saying, make sure that we're aligned. Then the third and the final element is exactly what you just saw, making sure that we are layering the targeting criteria to make sure that we are getting the most advantage out of the LinkedIn ad campaign. So if we go back to this example that we just had a moment ago, what you can see is that the first two series of filters that were implemented focus on the persona. We want to try and make sure that we are reaching that ideal buyer within that company. And then the second are the ideal customer profile, so the types of company that we want to work with. I could sit here and ramble off for the next 2 hours, all of the different criteria that you can target by on LinkedIn, but I will tell you that these four listed here are the single best targeting functions to be able to use, because you get two related to persona and you get two related to ICP. There are others involved in there, and there's all sorts of strategies around how or why you may do that. I think generally speaking, we've found that over the course of the hundreds of thousands of dollars we've spent with that client that I just mentioned, we found that these are typically the four most impactful criteria that you want to make sure that you're leveraging. The other main point that I want to make sure I leave you with for this section is knowing that we want to make sure that we are filtering these and we're using the and statements. So actually we'll go all the way back for a second. You notice how the blue box here listed out the job function and all and statements. That's the way that we're going to be able to make sure that we are getting that precise targeting that we really want. If those were all inside of one big box, the chances are you are going to be showing ads to a lot of people that are very disqualified from ever working with you. So we want to make sure that we're using these filters appropriately and making sure that the statements will make sense. The other way that I like to do this when I'm physically presenting or preparing a campaign to be presented is I like to go through this mental exercise and literally restate the filters that I'm seeing here for the ads. So I might say, okay, I want to target people that are in some form of administration or marketing, and I would like to make sure that they've been to one of our website pages, and that they are a senior or director or VP, whatever, and that they are not current or existing clients. Even saying it out loud, I feel like, okay, this is probably a better alignment towards our ICP than not. So, making sure that we are layering our targeting. That is the very first tip here. And we're going to go into the strategies around how you can potentially then create your different campaigns in a moment. But the next step in this journey of making good LinkedIn ads is making sure that we choose the right ad format. There's 11 different types of ad formats that LinkedIn produces. And certainly the single most powerful one that we've found is the single image ad, which you can see here. The other format that is available that is sometimes used, but not quite as often, is a text ad. Of the 11 types of different ad formats that I just referenced a minute ago, we have found that single image and video are the hands down best two ad formats to use. We find that often they produce sometimes single digits or even double digit percentage boosts in click-through rates. So things that we certainly want to make sure that we are getting good at, making sure that we can serve the right ad and get it in front of the right person and make sure that we're driving specific action. Really, really important. And so we find, and I would recommend highly, that these are the two types of ads you were to run with. That was a very quick section, as you can tell. But the third is creating that captivating content. Now, this is arguably one of the hardest things to be able to do on LinkedIn. As you all know, you're on LinkedIn every single day. You know that there is a lot of content that's flowing through your feed at any given moment in time. What we want to make sure is that we are creating that compelling content that will reach the right person and speak to that person as they see it come up on their feed. So, one thing that we've done a tremendous amount of work on is figuring out what are the bases for creating compelling ads. What are things that are going to make people want to click? What we've found is that there are three extremely powerful tips or three extremely powerful things that will either make your ad perform very, very well or not well at all. And what that typically comes down to is your imagery, your language that's being used, and your call to action. All of those things need to be combined in order to create a really, really effective ad. And obviously the powerfulness of the imagery, the directness of the language, and a very specific call to action are those three kind of main components. So let's take a look at that in the wild. This is an example from a company called Chili Piper, B2B software company. I love their ads. I think they're visually stunning, very interesting, and personally, this speaks very well to what I would consider to be a compelling ad all the way around. And why? Because it has that short, compelling intro text at the top. Be honest, that's something very kind of nice and alluring about that. It has a visually aligned imagery. So what I also love is that it's very on brand. They make it very clear. The Salesforce assignment rules, which for those of you in the back, hopefully you can see this, but long wordy text. Would you rather be like this or would you rather be like us, right? I think that's a very clear and powerful message that says, hey, we are clearly the superior offer here. And then what I love is that clear call to action. Too many reps, not enough ops, try Chili Piper. To me, that again speaks to it's very well aligned, the audience was well defined, the ad was compelling, and from what I can tell, this has been one of probably their better performing ads because I continue to see this in my feed over and over again, but it's clearly driving some volume for them from a lead generating perspective. Let's look at another example. Shopify. One thing that I immediately love, and I'm sure all of you can probably sense this as well, you are kind of immediately drawn to the picture and the language in the picture. Get paid faster. I don't know how much more direct you can be than that, personally. Clearly that is trying to drive your eye and drive your attention towards we have the benefit for you that you want, which is to get paid faster. So, informative and feature-focused copy up at the top. I love the clear language with that simple imagery, and again, it's powerful. The image is not even, actually, here's a side note. One thing that I also really, really love about this probably took a graphic designer 4 minutes to make in Canva. This was not a particularly challenging ad to create because it's an image and it's text slapped over the top and it's just laid out in a nice visual way. That to me is actually another good sign of an ad, is that it's easy to produce. And then there's a clear call to action with that. So these elements combined do create that really, really compelling kind of ad offer there. And I think one thing that we will all kind of recognize and enjoy about advertising to some respect, as much as you may possibly enjoy it or not, is that LinkedIn, I think the leveling up that people have had around creating good ads, it's continuing to just get better. So these tips will hopefully make sure that your ad is well created. But now let's get into the meat and potatoes. We understand, okay, we've defined our audience. We've started to understand, okay, now we need to make sure that our ad is compelling. We're using the right format. Now we need to talk about how are we going to optimize for action. And then we're going to bring this in with our fifth and final tip that will really bring home the full strategy that you all should be aware of. Optimizing for action. So when we think about how do we structure campaigns inside of LinkedIn, I think almost every business in this room could leverage this very simple 3-stage type approach. If you remember what we talked about earlier, it was that we want to make sure that we are aligning our content and our ads to our ICP and our buyer persona. At the highest level that we can think of, from an awareness perspective, I'm trying to just create awareness amongst brands that have never possibly heard of me, or maybe they have some awareness of what I do or my business. I want to make sure that I'm showing them specifically how I can be a benefit to them, how they can work with me, how I can really bring home and bring that awareness to them. And so when we look at this, I want to think about the objective of the campaign. So first, I want to make sure that I'm driving traffic to my website, right? Obviously, if I don't get them to the website, I didn't do a very good job. I want to make sure that I am aligned to the overarching target market. So at the highest level, I may say, I want to reach software companies in California that must be at least this size. That's my target market, perhaps. Just bear with me for a moment on that example. The content, we typically then want to be at the highest level. We want to focus on the features, the benefits, the solutions, things that make you and your business unique. And then the destination is going to typically be some form of homepage or feature page. We want to just drive them to the website. We have no necessary direct intentions right away to get them to complete a form, download our content, buy our service, whatever it is. If you get that, awesome, then that means it's a tremendous benefit. But the reality is that doesn't often happen in a B2B buyer's journey. We want to make sure that we are just giving them the information, seeing if they are interested or seeing if they want to continue to engage. And so that's where we typically will then drive people to a homepage. And I think the last thing is our call to action. We then want to just help them, inspire them, and encourage them to learn more. Again, we are not necessarily trying to say, hey, buy my service or my product. I don't know how many of you have all experienced this, but if you ask your partner to marry you on the first date, it doesn't often work very often, now does it? So in that way, we want to think of advertising in a similar way. We're not asking them to marry us up front, we're just trying to see if they are a good fit. Now, for the great part, the lead generating part. This is where the tactics that we've been discovering from working with a bunch of clients now, this strategy is fundamentally the one that has the most legs when it comes to generating the leads. LinkedIn has this very cool offer called the lead gen form. What it is, it's a form that's baked into LinkedIn, and it can collect information right in the platform. The person clicking the ad never has to leave to go to your website. That may sound counterintuitive, but what we know is that statistically there's about a 2 to 4% higher conversion rate when you use a lead gen form versus when you try to drive them to complete a form on your website. So what we like to do is we recommend this, and this, for any business in this room that has interest in generating leads, if you were to only deploy a single campaign inside of LinkedIn ads, we would recommend this type of campaign. You can drive the best qualified leads at a reasonable cost if it's, again, done properly. But what you are looking to do is first define and make sure that your audience is very specific. Now, from the example I just gave a minute ago, instead of saying, I want to reach B2B technology companies in California, I might now want to say, I want to reach heads of marketing at B2B technology companies in California. Bringing it a little bit more refined. I'm not just trying to create awareness at this point, I'm trying to get in front of the exact right person. And to do that, we typically will then want to include content or tools or things. We want to give people the resources to be able to then raise their hands and say, I'm interested in learning more. You have provided value for me, therefore I am willing to give you my information. Just as all of you today have been going around scanning each other's name badges with the QR codes, we want to make sure that we are providing enough value to exchange information back and forth. That is one of the single most important goals with the lead gen content. We want to be able to identify and make sure that the content is really truly aligned to our target market. And typically that call to action should be something in the effect of download, get resource, get now. Very focused, very driven on how do we get that lead, or how do we get that person to subscribe, to show interest and give you their information. Then the third and the final step, and really this is, I think, the more tactical one, also with a little bit of budget, can be a very powerful one. If you were to then run a conversion campaign. So again, we've talked about awareness, we've done lead gen, now we're at conversion. In the simplest format, that is a really well-structured way to be able to achieve good lead gen results on LinkedIn. So from the conversion perspective, we now want to look at engaged accounts. We want to be able to see people that have shown interest in the website, they've visited multiple pages, they've expressed previous interest in your content that you've offered. We want to be able to try and reach those people and get them to take further action in terms of trying to move them along to ultimately get them to become a buyer. And so how do we do that? We typically do it through offering some form of calculators, content or testimonials, case studies, things that will fundamentally help a B2B buyer be more likely to make a decision and say, I trust you. You are a good company for me, let's do business together. And that is typically the content that will then, may not serve as often in a LinkedIn ad format, as an example, but will often carry the highest ROI in terms of your overall campaign structure. And typically the destination, this is where, again, maybe you do drive them back to the website, maybe you don't, maybe you use a lead gen form instead. But realistically, what you were trying to do is get them to do something else. You're trying to get them to see your product, see your solution, have a sales call, take a free trial of your service if that's what you offer. You were trying to literally get them to pick up the phone and call you in some respect. It could be any number of those possible outcomes, but the goal is you are taking an engaged person or somebody that's shown interest and try to push them over the finish line, get them to become a deal, get them to become a possible sale for you. So as a structure goes from a campaign management perspective, that's a very good hierarchy of how we would typically structure campaigns for clients. And as a bonus, I wanted to add, if you are trying to optimize for that conversion as an example, we highly recommend, and I've included at the end of the presentation, you'll see the QR code. There's a link to a completely free landing page template that we have where you are this is a very good lead generating landing page. We found this to be very successful for a lot of clients, and it has a few elements that I think are very impactful for a lot of businesses like yours. Particularly, and first and foremost, getting a landing page form at the very, very top. We do find that that will typically convert at a much higher rate than landing pages that don't include a form like that. And so the last thing I think that's often overlooked for a lot of businesses is, okay, we've gone through this effort, we may have launched a couple campaigns, things are feeling good, but now, how do we decide whether we're going to keep running these campaigns or not? What does success look like? Well, that's where we need to get data-driven. And so what we typically will then want to do and look at is trying to encourage and integrate with your CRM or marketing automation platform. We want to make sure that anybody that is potentially expressing interest is certainly making it into the system. And the reason is so that we can then ultimately determine, decide, review, and figure out if we are spending this amount on ads, are we achieving Y amount in revenue, or in deals, or in sales calls, or opportunities, whatever is important to you. That's a really important step that we want to make sure is happening. The other thing that we want to do is make sure that we are reviewing campaigns in set time frames. I typically recommend no shorter than 14-day time frames. And so I'm saying that because often what we've seen is that clients have said, yeah, I launched a LinkedIn ad campaign, I ran it for 3 days, it wasn't doing anything, so I shut it off. I'm sorry, but I don't know that any marketing effort I've ever seen has been able to be determined successful or not within a 3-day time period. It's just not gonna happen. You need to give it more time. So typically 14 days is the absolute minimum, though we prefer looking at 30-day windows to look back and see, is this campaign performing or not? And then the last thing is, again, the outcome-based decisions. Like I said, if I can sit here and say, hey, all right, client, we spent $2,000 on LinkedIn ads this month, it produced $5,000 in sales opportunities for you. Is that enough? That's an outcome-based decision, and that's something we want to make sure that we can prove that there's results from the activity that we're generating. And I'm going to add too, because I think there is a lot of in-platform opportunity to also review data and get interesting insights as well. In the LinkedIn Campaign Manager tool, as an example, if you look in the top right there, what you see is that there's a demographics button. And when you click on that, you actually get really powerful insights around people that you're targeting. This particular campaign, you can see we're going after a lot of software engineers, data engineers, project managers, etc. And you get some really cool insights coming out of this. As an example, what you can see is down in that bottom right there. There we go. The product manager role only has a 0.25% click-through rate. But then you have others, like that one just a little bit further below it, the Scrum Master is getting 1.3%. Big difference. We want to be able to then say, okay, maybe we're going to take out that product manager role and see what else we can do to get more Scrum Masters involved in this campaign. So there's a number of in-app offers and data points that should be considered. And the last thing, just a bonus round for anybody that is going to be trying to launch their own LinkedIn ads campaigns, which I highly recommend every business consider. Whether you use an agency partner or not, I think there's a tremendous amount of value. If you were to follow that 3-tier structure that I just mentioned a minute ago, I think you will see some success. But with some caveats. We want to make sure that we are only using manual bidding. We do not ever want to let ad platforms run away with maximize bidding campaigns. They will just run away with your budget. The clicks will be too costly. Use a manual bidding strategy. And what you'll see, actually, one thing I love about LinkedIn in particular, when you select manual bidding, it will give you a range, and it'll say, you can spend $8 a click, you can spend $20 a click, whatever it is. Pick the middle. Just pick the middle, a number that hopefully will feel comfortable to you, and you will see that 9 times out of 10, that ad campaign will continue to produce a cost per click at that rate. The next is disable audience expansion. This goes for essentially any platform as well. You do not want to let LinkedIn ads run away with choosing new audience members to add in. If you've done your homework and defined really well your different details of your campaign, you don't need this. Keep your intro text to 2 lines. I don't know if you saw in those examples, but they were very, very short intros. And the reason why is because it turns out if you have more than 2 lines of intro text, organic LinkedIn loves it, right? Everybody wants to click to see more, to read the full bio about this person's life, inside of an organic post. On an ad, that's a chargeable event, and they will charge you for that money. So you want to make sure that you are not making ad text more than 2 lines. Do not use the audience network. I can explain all the reasons why, but that's self-explanatory. And then another one, a pro tip, set your end dates on campaigns. I typically choose the end of every month. The sole reason for that is if you were to go off and launch campaigns today and forget about it, we just want to make sure it doesn't run away forever, spending all of your money unfettered, because that would not be good. So that's a lot of really highly practical tips. All of these tips combined, you will certainly see good benefit from running LinkedIn ads campaigns. It will drive leads for your business, and the decision makers are out there. They are waiting. So now we're going to open this up for Q&A. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for your presentation. My name is Michelle Ferguson. I'm the owner of Hilton Realty.
Yep.
We're a small but diligent real estate company, and we provide free home inspections for doctors, policemen, firefighters, a few of the folks in the community.
Sure.
I'm wondering if you know, we've all had that experience where as business owners, we get very busy
Mhm.
and we sometimes will be in the middle of filling a form and the phone rings or an email comes in that we have to attend to.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if it's a live capture form filling?
You mean on the
does it
landing
live
page?
capture? Yeah, like when these forms are being filled out, let's say I'm almost to the submit button
Sure.
and the phone rings and I don't get to hit submit.
Mm.
Will that client still be retained? And then my second question is, will you ever have a class, like are these slides available or do you have a class?
Great question. Yeah, so on the first part, for the LinkedIn lead gen form itself, 9 times out of 10, that form is pre-populated with information. So in most cases, it should actually just have all the information populated there and then all they have to do is hit submit. If we are talking about another CRM or a landing page where you have a form integrated in some form or fashion, that unfortunately really depends on the solution that you're using. That's in HubSpot as an example. Sometimes it keeps that information if there's been a cookie set at the browser. I won't get into all the technical details around that, but basically it's hit or miss depending on the solution that you're using.
Thank you, that's an excellent answer.
Yeah, on the second response, and you actually reminded me about something. On this resource page, for anybody that's interested, if you are a Massachusetts company that is under 100 employees, the state of Massachusetts, for those of you who don't generally know about this, produce what's called the Mass Workforce Development Grant, which is a program where companies can get reimbursed for approved trainings and workshops and other events like this. Ding ding, we created a workshop just for businesses in Massachusetts to be able to do this exact thing. So if anybody was interested in getting a completely kind of produced digital marketing plan for you, you will find a link to it on that landing page that you go to. And again, it is 100% reimbursed. No, there's not a ton of strings attached or bureaucracy. You get the reimbursement at the very end of the course. Very straightforward. We've done it a bunch of times. It's a really good program.
What's the access code for stating that we need an access code to get the resource content?
To get the resource? Let me check on that. I will get right back to you about that.
I have a question on
Yeah.
the lead gen
Mm-hmm.
campaign. I'm a little confused on how that would work. Like, what would the flow be? Like, so I'm, for example, trying to target directors of marketing
Sure.
in a company.
Yep.
Am I going to first be serving them up with sort of more of an awareness ad, with some call to action that they click on that takes them to this lead gen form? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so those single image ads that you saw as an example earlier, or maybe let me just go all the way back here. We'll work our way back here. While we're working on that, yes, it's an ad. So this specific Shopify ad is probably not a lead gen ad, but if you bear with me for a minute. What you see here is that you've got the intro text, you've got the ad image, and then you've got the clear call to action. In LinkedIn, when you set up a lead gen form campaign, what happens when you click that button that says sign up is a form will then pop up. It will take over your feed, you won't be able to see anything else, and it will state the name of the form, what your offer is, and then it has form fields associated to it. Those form fields, the user, all they have to do is click one button, typically, submit. And once they do that, then it will automatically send the data to you, the advertiser, and then they will get some kind of a thank you message that says, thank you so much, we appreciate your info, have a great day, and off they go right back to their LinkedIn ads journey. When you set up the campaign inside of LinkedIn, it will clearly show the type, and it will say lead gen campaign. I highly recommend that. All the other targeting criteria that I mentioned earlier, you can use the job titles, job functions, seniority, company type, etc. So it all works well. So you set up your audience, you set up your ad, you set up your lead gen form, and then you launch it. Does that answer?
It does answer my question. I have one follow-up.
Sure.
What have you experienced in terms of effectiveness of that, in that a lot of people have shifted from reviewing their whole LinkedIn feed, like scrolling down, to go to reviewing it according to the updates,
Sure.
right? So something like that wouldn't necessarily make it into someone's update, but it would only appear in, like, if they're scrolling.
Potentially, yeah. So we've not seen necessarily huge changes in click-through rates or number of leads that are coming in based on how they're viewing the feed. Typically, LinkedIn is still going to intersperse ads regardless of kind of how their feed is being sorted. The thing that we always continue to find though is that the content and the ad and the alignment to the audience, those are the three most powerful aspects that will really be the determining factors of success for a campaign. And I will just generally blanket say there's a lot of really good data out there around benchmarks for companies that are running LinkedIn ads. Most companies may see or expect a 0.25% click-through rate or a 4% conversion rate on a lead gen ad, where others may see much higher numbers or much lower. It depends on your industry, depends on your size, depends on the type of ad you're running. Obviously, a little bit too much to try and cram in here to an already jam-packed presentation, but there's lots of data out there. Just search LinkedIn ads benchmarks 2024. You will find the answer that you need.
Are your cards up there?
Yes, I have business cards up here as well, and it's right on the landing page as well.
So I'm actually late to the LinkedIn game, but so for someone who's like new,
Sure.
do you guys have like at LinkedIn like someone who could like set up a profile for people who are new to LinkedIn and then also do like the ads and things like that?
Yeah. So generally, you will find that typically there's two different types of companies. There's ad agencies like myself that really focus on how do we make an ad work well and generate revenue for your business. The other side is typically an organic agency. So companies that try to help you produce a profile, have presence, produce content. Typically, that's another agency. I can't
That's like
believe we don't
outside
do
of
that.
LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Or
or
just go onto my LinkedIn.
they would work
Yeah.
with you to help you figure out a strategy of how do you want to position yourself, what
But there's
the
no
content.
like LinkedIn reps that.
Not organically, no. There's representatives for ads specifically, but they are
They don't
any
do the ads for you.
Yeah, exactly. Any ad rep that you work with on an ad platform will always just try to get you to spend more money. Verbatim, we deal with ad reps all the time. That's all that they try to do. So very interesting questions. Well, I know that we are about at time. I'm happy to stick around, answer any other questions you all have. Thank you so much. I hope you found this informative. Have a lovely day and good luck generating leads.